Okay, ready.
It's a storyboard of aircraft that we've built. Everything in color is what we've built, and black and white is original Wright or what we have not built. The first two gliders, the 1900 and the 1901, was an Otto Lewenthal design and airfoil. And the Wrights really got interested in aviation when Lewenthal died in, I think it was 1894. Was killed from a glider crash. Anyway, this airplane, they figured that they would get the spar material when they got to Norfolk. But when they got there, the longest spar material they had was only 18 feet. And it needed to be like 24 feet. So they didn't return home. They just went on to Kitty Hawk with it. Set up, Will set up his tent at the postmaster's house in a tent outside, Mr. Tate's. And he put this all together, and Orville joined him. That this would only lift 75 pounds. And they found a young Tate boy was about that weight, so they put him on it, and just to see. And they also, before they tried that, they put 75 pounds of chain on there, see how much it would lift. They were not disappointed, although it didn't fly very well. It basically proved their wing warping ability of the control of the airplane. Wilbur was playing with an inner tube box, which is long and narrow, square. And he was just playing with it, and he was doing a conical twist with that, and determined that maybe this would be a good way to have control of the airplane. So they copied that, and it worked well. Well, they came back the next year, 1901, and it's hard to see in this photograph, but they made the biggest glider that anybody had ever made before. This is a 7-foot cord here, and they had problems with it because it was the cord was so long, the ribs were so flexible that the airflow flow of the air was changing constantly. They tried to make it work by putting another spar on here, and they took some broom handle pieces and put along that spar and ran wires up to every rib to give it some stability. And it did a little bit, but not the way they wanted. And this is when they came home and made the statement that it'll be 1,000 years before anyone discovers the secret of flight. Catherine, in her notes, says the boys are home early and they're not talking about flying anymore. Well, when they got home, there was a letter from Octave Chanute, who invented the Pratt truss, but also was interested in gliding and flight. So he had sent them a letter inviting him to come to Chicago to talk to the Western Society of Engineers. And of course, Wilbur said no way, and Orville said no way. Catherine pushed them and basically accepted the idea that maybe they would be introduced to the leading aviation people in the world. So they did go, and what they learned was that they knew more about gliding and flying than anybody in that room. If you get a chance to read Orville's speech about flying, it's a fantastic way that he presented it. So they came home completely, after that convention, they came home completely rejuvenated, and it was a big step. They said to themselves, there's something wrong here, that this airfoil, there's something wrong, we need to do our own thing. So they made a bicycle, took a bicycle, put a wheel horizontally, as you've all seen, and put different airfoils, and everything is calculated against the performance of a flat plate. And when they were ride down the road with this, the angle was supposed to be like 8 degrees offset. It ended up being like 15. So they knew that something was wrong. So they built a wind tunnel and tested over 200 airfoils. And out of that 200, they picked 3 that had the best performance, least amount of drag, most lift versus the least amount of drag. And you can see the finished product was in 1903. And you see how thick the airfoil, what the core is here. Now we've got a good aspect ratio on the airfoil, on the shape of the wing. And they picked an airfoil between 2 of the airfoils they tested, and we're not sure why. They never explained why they did that. But they, all total, they had over 1,400 or 1,500 glides on this glider. It was